So we're going to move these chairs out, and we have another great presentation, no surprise. I'm excited to talk a little bit about this because I think it's an important and often overlooked part of how we can apply robotics and physical intelligence to really make a substantive improvement in human life. So I'm excited to introduce Frederik Ebert. He's the CEO and co-founder of Emancro, which is using robotics in hospitals and pharmacies in hospitals to help reduce waste and improve patient outcomes. So please give a warm round of applause as soon as the chair leaves the stage to Frederik. Thank you very much. Frederik?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm the founder and CEO of Emancro Robotics. The mission of Emancro is to build the physical AI layer of hospitals. And what I mean by that is a layer of general purpose robots that automates all hospital logistics tasks. So starting with medication distribution, then moving on to medical supply distribution, eventually adding food serving, changing linens, automating the hospital lab, and more. We've spoken to tens of different hospitals, and they all tell us the same thing, that labor shortage is their #1 operational risk. And that's what we're going to be addressing with this physical AI layer of hospitals. Before we got into hospitals, we actually looked at a number of different industries. And it turns out that hospitals really are the industry that has one of the highest labor shortage problems. And in addition, the issue is that many industries don't have too much ability to pay, but healthcare really does. And that's so important for humanoid robotics, where oftentimes unit economics still don't really make sense. And then the third reason why we focus on hospitals is it's the perfect proving ground for general purpose robotics, because you have a huge variety of different tasks, and you have a lot of stability. You have very clear task definitions, you have stable floor plans, you have barcodes, you have extremely reproducible workflows all across hospitals. And what we're doing right now is that we're focusing on hospital pharmacy automation. And why we go into hospital pharmacy is because it's one of the most important departments in the hospital. It's extremely critical to get all the medication to every patient on time. In a typical large 400-bed hospital, you're looking at an annual budget of around $100 million, where $30 million of that is used towards staffing and equipment and could be available for robotics deployments. There are about 64 pharmacy technicians in a typical large 400-bed hospitals, and they're working across 2 to 3 different shifts, supplying up to 10,000 doses a day. And it's very scalable to do hospital logistic medication distribution. For example, there are actually only 2 cabinet makers of medication cabinets that control the majority of the market. So if we can make this work for one hospital, we can immediately scale this to the entire US and the world. The labor shortage is so severe, there's actually a 26% turnover rate per year, for example, for pharmacy technicians. And that labor shortage leads to very severe issues, including having expired medication accumulate in the medication cabinets, which is not only dangerous to patients, but also wastes up to $500,000 per year. In addition to that, as a result of the labor shortage, medication often runs out mid-procedure. So if any restocking error happens, that can result in not having the right meds in the middle of a surgery, in which case the patient's life is at risk and they need to send someone to the central pharmacy to get the medication and run back. And there are other issues with drug diversion, which can lead to multi-million-dollar fines. And all of these issues can be addressed with our robotic solution, which can do item-level tracking and fully autonomous distribution of medication. So when I say hospital medication distribution, what I mean is the task of bringing the meds, which are stored in the central pharmacy, typically in the basement of the hospital, bringing it to the various different medication cabinets. In a 400-bed hospital, you'll have about 100 medication cabinets scattered throughout the hospital in nursing units, in operating rooms. And it is the full-time job of up to 25 FTEs to restock all these cabinets. And that's where, this is how it's done today. So when a medication cabinet runs low on meds, it sends an electronic report to the central pharmacy where they pick up the medication, put it in carts, and then send it up to the unit, to the OR, where a nurse will restock it. So this is a typical medication cabinet. They will then open it up, count all the meds, check all the expiration dates, make sure nothing's expired. They put in the required quantities, and at the end, they type all these infos on the screen, which is very error-prone. And if you make any mistake here, you could be running out of meds mid-surgery, or it could be a severe bottleneck. And we built EZO to solve the healthcare workforce gap, and this is a fully autonomous AI-powered robot. Here we're showing the first step of the robot retrieving the medication in the central pharmacy. So as you can see, it's using a hand to get a box of medication from the shelf here. And then it uses vacuum suction to get the individual meds out and put them into the robot's own compartments. It has 14 drawers on both sides to carry a number of medications. And once the robot has loaded itself up with medication, it will then autonomously drive through the hospital to the various 100 medication cabinets. And then initially, it'll authenticate with the cabinet. So that can be either through typing on the screen. It's human compatible, so it can use any human interface, or through an electronic interface, which we're currently working on with the manufacturer of this cabinet. Now the drawers of the robots unfold, which are now preloaded with medication, and it begins restocking all the medication into the cabinet. It's able to handle the entire range of form factors, from vials, syringes, cream tubes, IV bags, blisters, pretty much anything that goes into the cabinet. And importantly, it can check the expiration dates by putting them on this little conveyor belt, rolling them, and then reading off with OCR, confirming that this is not expired. If it is expired, it will put it into a special quarantine pocket on the robot, and at the end, it will provide a report to the pharmacist to say exactly how much was expired, where all the medication, where did they end up. And here's a video. We just piloted this at Mayo Clinic in September this year. This is the robot working on real medication in front of a real medication cabinet. And early next year, we'll be doing an additional pilot, and then after that, it will get into production. Mayo Clinic is very happy with the results, where overall, we averaged more than 80 items per hour. We can allow a 24-hour runtime through battery swapping. And I will now introduce a little bit our team and a little bit background on myself. So I did my PhD at Berkeley, working with Professor Siri Levin and Chelsea Finn on foundation models for robotics, which are in use here. And I was also with Google collaborators working on zero-shot imitation learning with Eric Zhang and Corey Lynch from 1X and Figure AI. The team here, we're 8 engineers full-time right now, with different backgrounds in product development, robotics software engineering, mechanical engineering, and of course, healthcare. So we can look a little bit more closely. So for robots to scale them, we really have to take a close look at the unit economics to make sure that this really works out. So in a typical 400-bed hospital, you'll have about 64 pharmacy technicians. So you'll have about a 26% turnover every year. And then the idea is basically we fill in robots. So we kind of we fill in the gap with robots. You wouldn't need to fire anyone. It would be a pure churn-based deployment. So we'll go from 64 to 32 technicians and use 15 robots. And what that will save the hospital is about $1.4 million a year, considering that we'll be charging roughly $80,000 per year per robot for a robot that operates 24 hours a day. And the current production cost for this system is about $50,000. At 300 units, we're estimating that we could be getting close to $20,000. And we're also accounting for a teleoperation cost of around $5,000 per year. So all these robots are monitored by our control center. So that will result in a 120% ROI for our customers and a 3-month payback period for Emancro. This is a breakdown for how the work in the hospital pharmacy breaks down. So the big majority of work is on the hospital, on the medication distribution side, with around 45%, and that can free up to 23 technicians in a 64-technician hospital pharmacy department, which is a very significant amount of the work. So in terms of our customer pipeline, we are preparing 6 different pilots for next year. where we got 40 inbound inquiries from hospitals around the world, and yeah, getting ready to scale this at a larger scale. And our plans are not stopping at medication logistics. So for medication distribution, we're estimating 15 robots could be deployed in a 400-bed hospital. For the next step after that would be distributing medical supplies, and we'll then continue and eventually reach 80% of all hospital logistics tasks. And so the system overall, we have a patent for that. We're currently the only company that uses a hybrid hand and suction cup in production. So hands are really great to pick up boxes, large items. You have multiple contact points. And suction is really great for slippery small items like vials, where current hands are still not very good. And we're using these 14 rotatable drawers, which allows a lot of storage. There's a barcode scanner at the front of the robot, and a linear actuator to adjust the height, a mobile base to navigate the hospital floors. And I'm now going to go over the core technology here. So this is all powered by Jedediah, our proprietary generalizable dexterous intelligent agent. At the core of this, it uses a vision language action model, which is inspired by my PhD research, and it also uses a visual servo algorithm. So the vision language action model has the advantage it's trained purely from imitation learning, from demonstrations. It can scale very quickly to any kind of new task. But if you bring it into an entirely new environment, you would have to collect some amount of additional data. But it's extremely flexible. It can grab these boxes with just a few millimeter tolerance. And on the other hand, our visual servo algorithm is very good at picking up these tiny vials, like down to 6 millimeters. It perfectly transfers to any new hospitals with 0 additional data requirements. So these two algorithms are used here. And then we have a dual arm motion planner that makes sure these two arms can work independently without bumping into each other. There's a user interface that's either via natural language or using a web app where you can configure desired item arrangements, tray layouts, and more. And all these modules are strung together using our task manager, which can sequence together a long sequence of complicated tasks. So you can do like real workflows that can last hours. All these blue modules are developed in-house. So here's another view of our dual arm motion planner. And as I mentioned, so the key ingredients here are VLAs, visual servo, the motion planning. There's hardware optimized trajectory execution, and of course the task manager. And we also use teleoperation as a backup, not as the primary driver, but in case the robot does not make progress. So here's a quick demo of the visual servo. So I can kick away this vial with my finger here, and then it would immediately respond to that and pick up the item. So that's really what gives us a lot of robustness, high throughput. And I now wanted to present our next version that we're going to be bringing out early next year, which will be a much more humanoid shape. And the reason is that we've seen hospitals are extremely cramped in many of the medication rooms and operating rooms. There's really not much space. So we actually have to get a more human-like shape. And we achieve that by moving these drawers from the robot onto separate runner robots. And this humanoid, it uses wheels, will be about the size of a human. And the reason why we use wheels is that in the hospital, it's guaranteed to be even. Like in the worst case, you have some cables in an operating room that you can just drive over with if you have the right air tires. So really, there's no real reason to use legs as far as we can see. And that's why we decided to do that. So as you can see, the robot is equipped with suction tools. Because the hands aren't quite ready to handle these slippery vials reliably, we use these tools that can actually pick up to 4 items at the same time. So you can actually achieve superhuman speed. So that's our next-gen robot. Here's another rendering how it would be restocking a medication cabinet in an operating room. And we have a 20-year roadmap towards bringing robots into a variety of different use cases. We start with the hospital pharmacy with the medication distribution. We'll then grow in the hospital, getting into supply distribution, lab samples, linen, and then eventually outside of the hospital into senior care, hospital pharmacy, and many more applications. And we have plans. So these are our scaling plans. So we're estimating that so by end of next year, we should have 4 to 6 robots in permanent deployment. So as I mentioned, in September, we did the pilot with Mayo Clinic. So we're estimating that there should be a strong validation of product market fit, very strong ROI studies by early next year. And it turns out in the hospital, they would only pay you when you actually prove the ROI. They will not pay you even a single dollar if you haven't proven it yet in a scientific way. And it's just great because it's a high bar, but we're very happy to take that. And so in 2027, we could be deploying like 30 to 60 robots, close to 5 million ARR. And then in 2028, we could be branching out to a number of other tasks, including lab sample logistics, linen, food, perhaps some early pilots in senior care homes, and so on. Yeah, we're very excited to bring robots into the real world and taking on all these challenges and empowering mankind through robotics. Thank you very much.
Frederik, would you be open to answering a couple of quick questions from the audience? We have 1 or 2 minutes for that, if there are any takers. We have a question here in the front.
Do you take investment?
Do you take investment?
Yeah, investment.
Of course we do.
The answer's always yes.
Of course. Yes. Okay.
Any other questions? I mean, that was the question, right? What, was that a hand up? No. Any other questions? Oh, here we are, right there on the left, or stage left.
Hello. Oh, thank you for a good presentation. So, how do you find fast tasks can be replaced by humanoid or robotics in hospital? So you're the engineer, right? So, how do you interview to hospital? How do you find the medicine picking up is the best best task for robotics? So I want to yes.
Yeah, so the question was how do we even discover this use case? Because this doesn't seem to be so obvious. So it was the result of actually like years of market research. So what happened is I actually started with a different hypothesis. I wanted to restock the supply shelves in the hospital. And then we visited dozens of different hospitals, and we looked at basically the entire range of different logistics tasks. And that just stood out because it's so standardized. So all these medication cabinets are pretty much the same. There are only 2 vendors. So that was a result of just looking very closely, analyzing every workflow, talking to hundreds of different people in the healthcare space.
So for that, so did you bring your robots or prototypes to the hospital to talking with the hospital staff? So yes, I have a question about that. So as I said. So when you're talking about those, so when you discussion about the task, did you bring your prototypes to the hospital?
Did you bring it into the hospital?
So the way we got into the hospital is that we actually presented at a trade show. It's called ASHP. It's the world's largest trade show for pharmacy equipment. So all the hospital executives, all the pharmacy executives, they come to that trade show, and we actually gave a live demo there. So that's a really good way to get customers. So yeah, just give live demos.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cool.
We have one more question. We have time for one last question on the right side here. Let's.
You were talking about a teleoperation. Was that a requirement by the hospital, or was that just something that you offered? And how does that factor into your return on investment when you have a teleoperator that has to be part of the package?
So the hospital doesn't really care how much teleoperation percentage there is, but they want to see that the task can be done with extreme reliability. And teleoperation is still the best way to really ensure that you get like 100% reliability. They don't really mind what percentage. So initially, we'll be very close to like the high 90s of it because we're building our entire stack to be primarily autonomous. So we'll be using teleoperation only if an unexpected circumstance happens. Like, for example, someone put a chair in front of the medication cabinet, or someone put a piece of trash on the cabinet. We may have to teleoperate it, remove it. But it is absolutely a must-have to deploy at this point.
Thank you.
Great. We're out of time, unfortunately, but thank you so much. Please, everybody, give Frederik a big round of applause.
Thanks.